Hello, everyone. I'm gonna say this is the clicker. So do we have slides? There we go. All right, so I'm pretty sure you all have my email address because y'all all have my emails that you forward into a folder somewhere so that you can go read at your leisure, right? Those that we send out every week. But in case you don't, here's how you can contact me. And you know, pretty much, guys, I'm an open book. And if you send it to me, I'm going to email you back. It might not be right away. I might be in the middle of a presentation like this, but I will get back with you. It's hard to believe, and I was just talking to somebody, y'all, we're a month from the end of school. And there is a lot that has to happen between now and then to make sure everything gets completed and certified. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention and make sure that you knew was out there is that Student Information Systems data calendar. So last summer, I took a page from my old book in my old job when I was a technology director. I walked into the job, and I'll be honest, didn't know what I was doing. I learned about deadlines when somebody called and goes, hey, why didn't you turn this in? So I started making notes, started making you a calendar, figuring out what to do. Well, when it comes to PowerSchool and everything that goes into PowerSchool, y'all, it literally touches everybody. I was having a conversation with Dr. Mackey the other day about who all uses PowerSchool, and I said, really, it's everybody in a district except maintenance. It's every position except maintenance. CMP, counselors, principals, coordinators, you name it, all has some kind of piece or part inside of PowerSchool. And so a lot of times districts won't realize, especially when there's a lot of turnover, how much has to be done and certified in timely manners. So I went through and scoped out the entire year for everyone so that if you're a newbie or even if you're a veteran, you're like, hey, I don't even remember that this was supposed to be done. I've put a month-by-month calendar together for you to let you know expectations of things to get ready for, due dates when things will always be due, and not only do I say, hey, it's June and you've got to submit the homeless certification tile and you've got to make sure everybody's right, I give you little blue hyperlinks in this document that will take you to either a YouTube video or a printable tutorial to tell you how to do it. So that if you are brand new and you don't, a lot of us when we're new, we don't want to go ask for help because we want to show that we can do the job that we've been tasked to do. And so I give them that so they don't feel so lost waiting on somebody to tell them what to do next. So this is it's a Google Doc so that you can grab it, make your own copy of it, tick off little check boxes so it crosses it out and you know that you've gotten all of your information completed. We do it around all deadlines. So if you do not have this, the link is in this presentation for you. I also keep it out there on our Alabama PowerSchool site so that you can go through it at any time. I will be in the process of updating a lot of the documentation tagged in this because for most of you, we have swapped over to the new enhanced user interface. Raise your hand if your district has that new version of PowerSchool in it now and y'all have had to, And so for everybody whose hand is not raised, y'all are going to learn what that is this June. Because it gets flipped on everybody automatically in June. So all of our documentation will be updated with those new screenshots. So this calendar is there to walk you through everything that is coming up in those June submissions. So let's talk about that because that is huge. If you want to take a picture of anything to know that you've got to take back, this is it. So years before I even came to the department, there was a memo release where it stated that no longer were they going to give date certain snapshots for that pool of data where they kind of freeze it at the State Department. Now it's always said that it's the third Friday in October for 20-day and it's the third Friday in June for all of our state collections, especially that big 9-month report that kind of feeds everything else. So this year, the third Friday in June falls on June 21st. Okay, so that's D-Day. At 7 o'clock that night, we will take our last pull from your SIS databases, everything, and that is what will populate that 9-month report. So you have to kind of put yourself in a position of what do I have to have done before that? So one of the things that has to be done in every district before that is that end-of-year rollover process, because that end-of-year process is what actually takes the kids, promotes, retains, and graduates them, and moves everything over into that new academic year. That process always has to be ran the Tuesday to Tuesday before that D-Day, third Friday. So this time that's going to be June 11th through the 18th. Your district has to pick a day to press the magic button, okay? Press the magic button. Now, a lot of people get very scared at this because this does not always align with those portal windows where y'all have to do your certifications for all your federal programs tiles. But that's okay. As long as you understand what can be changed after end of year and what cannot. And there are two things that once your district presses that button, there's a point of no return and you cannot make any updates for. That is homeless data and attendance. Okay? So before the 11th, even if you say you're not going to press the button until the 18th, that's fine. I just went ahead and put on here June 10th. Make sure that your homeless data is all entered, which we know it should be entered in real time anyway for our kids. But if it hadn't been, any changes that you need to catch because kids not showing up in AIM has to be done before you press that button. And guys, you need to make sure that that data is replicated up to that tile first before you press that button so that you see it the way you need to see it. Also attendance. When you press that end of year button, that DAV value, which is what we collect that calculates your accountability, chronic absenteeism and such, it stops calculating after you do end of year because it moves everything over looking toward the new year. So those two things have to be completed by the 10th. Anything else, if you find out that you've got, oh, I forgot to update this EL status, or oh, I forgot, this kid is not showing as homeless and it should because you forgot to update the residency status or the valid year or something such as that, you still have time after this before you certify to get those data changes made and they will still populate into AIM. You can today, without the certification window being open, look in AIM and look at your numbers. And you should be auditing those now so that you don't kind of get scared in this window that you have that it all has to be done during that time, because it does not. You can pull up 23, 24 right now and see how your student data looks in AIM before the window even opens. So let's talk about all these screens and make sure we know where we're looking at and all have the same understanding of how this data is entered and where it comes from in PowerSchool. So the first thing that I wanted to give you is that new screen. So for the districts who have already updated to the enhanced user interface, you are very familiar with where your federal programs page now lives. It is up under the compliance flyout screen. So where we used to in the old UI where you had the laundry list of blue hyperlinks on the left, you had to go to that state province AL page. So what the new user interface does is it gives a different layout to the pages. It doesn't change any functionality inside of PowerSchool, but it does stack and index the pages in more cohesive ways once you get used to it. Also gives you a lot of cool quick search features, favorite features, and things such as that. But you will go to a student record just like you do now, and over on the left-hand side, you will need access to the compliance page. The compliance page is where all of our state, Alabama, what you saw as tabs, now live as individual pages. So our old AL custom screen where we mark, our CCR stuff, our exit types for seniors, things such as that, all live there. Your federal programs page lives there, and it all looks the exact same. The page didn't change, the functionality of the page did not change, just how you navigate to and from the page. And if this is a page that you live in, you'll be able to favorite this page and kind of pin it to your start page so that you can just go right to it and not even have to navigate anymore. So look forward to that. That should be dropping at the end of June for anybody who is not changed over yet, because districts do have the option to opt in by just checking a box over in security to go to the new view. But if they have not done it by the time we put out the what I call the back to school release, then it will automatically be turned on for everyone and there will be no way to turn it off. All right, so I want to go through each of the areas on that federal programs tab just to make sure that we understand where the data is coming from and what we have to do and where we have to do it at. So let's first talk about EL, because a lot of people will come to this tab and say, Stacy, this is great, I can't touch it, how do I mark this student EL? Well, remember that the data for EL, the profile data, lives inside of special programs. We know that the IELP and all the other live inside of elevation, and nope, special programs and elevation do not talk. There's nothing that I've seen in the roadmap for them to be able to talk. So all that profile information that feeds back to the SIS on this page right here comes from special programs. So if you see a student with an incorrect status, they don't have the EL checkbox, then you're going to have to take care of that inside of special programs. And I want to make a note on this because we are getting to the end of the year. Y'all remember that access for EL testing? Are we still doing that? Is it over yet? I don't even know where we're at in that window. It's over. So scores should be coming back sometime soon. Remember, do not get Johnny on the spot. I know some of y'all want to go ahead and update those statuses, but you can't. You have to wait until after our state collections before you move any kid's status from a 1 to a 2 to a 3 or whatever they are, because we need it to stay what it is for this year for that 9-month collection. So just as a reminder, when you get those test scores back for EL, don't go changing the statuses until after our state snapshots have been collected and your data's been accepted and verified, because you don't want to put all that work in to have to back all that work back out. Immigrant. So I have, and this is from the data code manual, our definition of what denotes an actual immigrant. And basically this is a checkbox where if you need to denote it, then you can. Now a lot of people have asked, well, Stacy, why is that not over in special programs with EL? Well, not every immigrant is EL. So it wouldn't make sense for it to go over there and I have to have that profile. It can be done from inside of this page here. Now the one thing, that country of origin box, notice it is gray. That does not get filled from either special programs or from this page right here. It actually comes from the home language survey. When we first started PowerSchool, do y'all remember the trifecta of country of origins? There were 3 different places, 3 different field names, and 3 different ways you had to update it. Well, we stopped all that, tied it all into one, and now everywhere you see country of origin is going to fall straight from that country that is on the home language survey. So if you ever see that grayed out, it's going to be grayed here, and then that will feed back into special programs where you see it on that profile for your students. Migrants. Another question that I get quite often. Stacy, I've got a migrant student and I need to check them as migrant in PowerSchool. So you actually don't do all of that. We bear the burden of entering all migrant data for you because there is a file, and I'm going to say the wrong name. It's M something 2000. Thank you, MIS 2000. And that's some kind of federal database that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know it makes the magic happen because our IT department gets this file from federal programs and they put that in there for you. So if there's a question about a kid who is not showing up as a migrant and you feel like they should in PowerSchool, you need to have that conversation with your federal programs contact so they can check that MIS 2000 file. So there is nothing you should have to do to mark a migrant student inside of PowerSchool. Homeless, and we talked about this for any of y'all who are here for the Homeless Liaison Conference. Just to remember that there are multiple boxes here on homeless that we have to address. Biggest one is the homeless type, and I really want to talk about this one because the two that y'all play back and forth with are going to be the potential and the verified. So remember that if a student is identified as homeless, you have to identify them as a verified homeless because we will not look at any status other than those that are verified. When they are verified for the entire year. So once homeless for the whole year. You'll see them even if they leave, you still stay in AIM from that status. When you press that end of year button, it takes all of those students that you have verified, it moves them into the next year, and it flips from verified to potential. Because you have to re-verify to see if those students are still in a homeless status for the upcoming school year or not. So we have built in a great report for you to see all these students so you know who you need to go act on for next school year and verify you have correct for this school year, and we'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. When it comes to homeless, one of the biggest, emails that the service desk gets is they'll have a kid that they have marked as verified inside of PowerSchool, but they're not showing up in the AIM tile for homeless. Well, there's 3 puzzle pieces that have to be in place correctly in PowerSchool for that kid to be triggered to go into that homeless tile in AIM. It's homeless type, has to be verified. So if they're potential, they're not going to show up. Only the verified status. The valid school year has to be the current year. What we see happen a lot is that you'll have kids marked in here as verified, but when that end of year process happens, all of that stuff below homeless type just kind of rolls into next year as what it was last year. So when you go, let's say, to Mickey Mouse, and you have him verified and he moves to potential, and you go, okay, Mickey is still homeless, so you mark him back to verified, well, that valid school year is still going to say 23-24. So you need to say, no, it's verified for now the 24-25 school year. So you've got to make sure that you update that school year for the school year that you're saying that they are verified in. So that's puzzle piece number 2. The third puzzle piece that has to be filled in is that residency status. If either 3 of those are blank, they will not show in that AIM portal in the homeless tile. Or if you have them mismatching the current school year, they will not show up in that homeless tile in AIM. Invalid reasons. Do we have times that we make human mistakes? Absolutely, because we are humans, we are not robots, and there is grace and leniency in this program. Thank goodness, because if we all had to be perfect, we'd all be in trouble. So if you have an invalid reason that you accidentally marked someone homeless and you need to make note of that, you can then have that drop down and you have these 3 options of why they were possibly marked invalid. Our barriers to education, so if you have any barriers that are present, you would want to mark those on students. Our served by funding, so if you are using your funds, you will have to state from what types of sources you're using those funds. And then for any services that are being provided from McKinney-Vento, you will want to mark what kind of services you are providing for those students. And just as an FYI, because a lot of people did not know this, or let me just say, how many of you here, raise your hand if you know that you can select multiple options in all of those drop downs. So if you hit the control button and click, you can choose more than one. If you just click and then click another, it's going to click off of that one and just click the new one. But if you hit control while you're clicking, so if you are using funds for personnel support and technology support, you can hit control and click both of them and both entries will be saved in the database for that student. Unaccompanied youth. So remember that in order to mark a student as unaccompanied youth, they first have to meet the definition of homeless. So if they do meet the definition of homeless, again, those 3 puzzle pieces have to be filled in. Homeless type, valid school year, and residency status. Then you can check the unaccompanied youth checkbox. We have a lot of people who will just check the unaccompanied youth box and forget to actually fill in the homeless information for the student. So remember, those 2 go hand in hand because by definition, they have to meet definition of homeless first to then be the non-parent guardian with the child so that you can mark them. Title I. Here's another one that we have a lot of emails about. If you are a targeted assistance or a school-wide school, that is denoted in your EGAP application. When your EGAP application is approved with that status, either school-wide or targeted assistance, that is sent in a file to our IT team at the state. They then push your list of schools into PowerSchool to automatically designate them as school-wide or targeted assistance. At the beginning of the year, it inevitably happens, I'll get an email, hey Stacy, this XYZ elementary school just became a Title I school, but it's not marked Title I in PowerSchool. How do I check it? I can't check it. It's gray. It won't let me do anything. Well, you're not going to see it pop up until it has been approved in your EGAP application so that it goes that chain of command with that data. Now, are there times where we have seen glitches on our side of the state with the data? Absolutely. So feel free to always call and ask, but just know, has your EGAP application been approved first? Because if it has and you still don't see it, that's when you need to make a phone call and let us know, and we'll start tracing the data down to see what might have happened. Another thing that I've seen is where a school might start out as targeted assistance. So if you get that targeted assistant designation, it's going to light up that TA programs and TA support services box so that you can enter data. When you enter that data, there's a start date and an end date on a student, okay? One of the issues that we have seen is where a school will start the year out as targeted assistance, and then all of a sudden after EGAP application is approved, will be swapped to school-wide. And we'll see kids who have data in TA with no end date, that once they make that swap, all that stuff grays out and you can't touch it anymore. So if you know you're going to be a school in transition, you will want to make sure that we end date those TA services so that you don't end up with any errors on students. We can always get PowerSchool involved to kind of get on the back end to change that data. And I can show you how to change it in tables, but we can't avoid that. So just keep in mind, if you know you're a district that's going to be swapping a school from TA to school-wide, touch base with me and we'll make sure we get everything transitioned so that you don't have to do any extra work after the fact. And then, of course, the last thing on that page is our 21st Century Competitive Grant. So we have the checkbox for you to note for any student who is participating in the 21st Century Grants. Foster care. So I want to give you an update about this one. So how many of you know that foster care has been broken in PowerSchool all year? Because right now, your source of truth for for foster care is not PowerSchool, it's AIM. So right now, the way that foster care gets inside of PowerSchool is from our direct certification file. If a student has been designated DC foster by DHR, then it goes into that DC file, comes into PowerSchool, and if we see that lunch status, there's a script that marks that checkbox for foster for the students. Okay, that's way number one. Way number two is if they're not on that file, but y'all know how sometimes kids are presented to you as foster that might not be on a caseload for DHR. You can manually check a student as foster by, you can't see it because of my little picture there, but there's an add edit button, and when you hit add, it gives you a start and end date for you to add that foster record so that you can account for any that are outside of that DC file. Now here's the problem that we discovered when, thanks to y'all and your communication, you're going, Stacy, we've got some kids that I know are in DHR and we know they're foster, but they're not showing up. So that's when I had to go do a little digging and talk to my friends at IT. So apparently, students can classify for multiple types of direct cert benefits. So you can be a direct cert free from SNAP, you can be direct cert free from homeless, from foster, from all these. So a student might have multiple of those designations. Well, in PowerSchool, we can only import one lunch status. See where I'm going with this? So IT has a hierarchy on what goes most important. And y'all can guess that DC free SNAP is what trumps everything. So maybe I'm a SNAP student and a foster student and I have both. But the one that actually gets written into PowerSchool is SNAP. So guess what doesn't get checked on my record? Foster. So Charles and I, who we've been working tight with PowerSchool on this, are getting them to rewrite that script all together for us. We're going to break foster out. Actually, we're going to break foster and Medicaid completely out of that lunch sync so that we can get true designations for those, and we're going to add in the case ID to foster. So next year, your foster and PowerSchool will all be checked correctly, so you should have a one-to-one match of what's inside of PowerSchool should match what's inside of AIM. Right now, when you look in AIM, you're going to see way more foster students than you see inside of PowerSchool because those DC kids aren't matching right now. Like it was causing more issues, so we had to cut that sync part off altogether. So the only ones you should expect to see are the ones you manually entered inside of there. So you'll want to kind of know that for this year, and next year know that it's going to work right because Stacy said it is. Yeah, I know that Stacy said. And then one of our latest additions that we have added into PowerSchool is that employment survey. And I actually linked to the webinar that Sally and I did together that I absolutely loved doing, where we went through and showed you how to do the functionality of this report, and she gave you all the compliance regulations around it of what should be entered and when and on who and how. So if you have any questions or if you're new and need somebody to understand how this works, that video will walk you through that employment survey. So once those parents turn that into you, you know who you need to put that into PowerSchool so that you're not having to send paper forms back to us at the State Department. So now for the good stuff. Because one of my big goals when I came onto the State Department was to help y'all with the reports that we have. So raise your hand if you currently, and I told y'all if you were at the conference last year to go back and ask your people, how many of you now have access to enterprise reports inside of PowerSchool? Okay, still not as many as I would like. Well, in the last 2 years, we have built close to 90 reports for y'all to give you the data at a glance. So I want to run through all of the reports that we have and what they now look like for you as federal program personnel, because we pretty much have a report for all of your areas that will allow you to see what is in PowerSchool, so you can pull that report up on one screen, pull the AIM tile up on the other, and in a perfect world, they should match 1-to-1. If you have a kid in PowerSchool, it should show a name, and that will help you find your discrepancies to see if you have any data issues that you need to address to make sure you get correct. Just to show you again a screenshot of what it's going to look like in the new enhanced user interface, it's going to be under data and reporting and reports. You'll see a new linkage to the enterprise report, and it'll give you that nice laundry list of reports. So let's first start off with the homeless report. So if you are over the input of the homeless information and you don't have this report, you're missing out. Because one of the things that I love about these reports is we can give you nice, big, bold graphics so you can immediately see how many kids are marked verified, how many kids are marked potential. So guess what? Next year, when we roll over and you start school in August and you're like, all right, who are all of my potentials? You're going to come back to this report, you're going to run it, you're going to see 100% are potential, and there's going to be a spreadsheet down the bottom to tell you who are the kids you need to go look at. And then you can make your judgments and do what you need to do in marking those kids correctly. There's no sense in y'all having to keep spreadsheets of your own or for you to keep running folders of paper around to get that, because we pay a lot of money for this program. We want it to do all the work for us. Migrant and immigrant. So if you're over those two subpopulations, this report right here will give you the counts of each one of those students and gives you some basic demographic information on them, because we know y'all are always needing them for reports, for grants, for things such as that. So this, again, it's one button click, gives you all that information, and you're not spending hours digging to see who all these students are and make sure they're all marked appropriately. Title I. Now, I have to admit, in my Sandbox server, I don't have any Title I data, because it's, I don't know, they can't do that for me. But anyway, if you did, you would have, if you're targeted assistance, you would have any of the support services and the programs and the counts of them listed at the top. And at the bottom, you would have all the students' names and their start and end dates for the programs that you have selected for them. So any of y'all who are targeted assistance Title I, you want this report. 21st century. Apparently there's something that y'all submit somewhere to somebody that's got the 21st century kids along with their absences, discipline, and grades, quarter grades. Some district had reached out and said, hey, Stacy, we have to submit this. Can y'all build the report for us? Absolutely we can. That is what we're there for. And so we put together this report. So with that being said, as you see all of these reports, if you know that there is something else that you have to submit somewhere, like we've gotten emails about a lot of DOJ requests here recently that some of y'all have to submit stuff for. Y'all, let us build that report for you. Just tell us what you need in it. I've got 3 guys who need something to do. They working for you, okay? EL, so we actually have 3 versions of this report, because everything that comes over from special programs, we have a 504, an EL, and a special ed report that's kind of all tied together. So if you're over multiple of those, you can use one report to see all. But we also made them granular in case you have 3 different people that don't need to see each other's stuff. So depending on which one your district has installed, you might only see EL data, or you might see EL data with other subpopulations as well. But this gives you your count, so it tells you how many you have in year 1, how many in year 2, how many in year 3, and then it gives you all of that information about them so that you can make sure that all your EL students are in the right status for the right year. It's a very good report to see all of your data at a glance, and y'all are not having to dig, because I know y'all, my best friend was over federal programs, and she had a file cabinet of our kids, and every year it's like picking up the whole stack of files, sitting them here and go, all right, where are we at, where are we at? I don't want y'all doing that. I want this program to do the work for you. And because we had the new employment survey, we built your report to go right alongside of it as well. So again, any student that you have data entered on that employment survey will populate here and give you nice charts, graphs, and whatever you need to make your decisions. And then last but not least, I always like to remind y'all, we do have a whole support team for you at the department when it comes to PowerSchool. So if you need one of our PowerSchool coaches to come on site, all you need to do is reach out. If they need to sit down and work with your groups of teachers or the group's district office, or you want to have a meeting with the registrars to remind them about all these federal programs pieces, they have a whole presentation on state pages that we've put together that they can go through with you. So as you're planning your PD for next year, think about, do you need them to come and solidify How many of y'all are hiring a whole lot of new front office people that you know you're going to have to train? This might be beneficial. And I'm just going to put a plug in for AETC and Mega this summer. We'll have PowerSchool sessions there as well. At AETC, we're running it as the old school STI conference. So there's going to be about 60 of them at that one. So if you're getting new counselors, registrars, and such that need PowerSchool training, hit us up at AETC. At Mega, we're going to have the Unified Insights redo. So if you've missed any of that training, and yes, all those wonderful dashboards y'all see in Unified Insights on enrollment and discipline, once we get it handed off to us and we can start building the dashboards for you, I'm going to flip you some federal programs dashboards up in there as well. So more is going to be coming on that. So any questions? I know I flew through that, but I know I stand between you and that door, so. I feel you. And y'all know if you ever have anything or have any issues, reach out to me. I'm here to support you, serve you, and do whatever needs to be done so that you can get your job done, and I love it each and every day.
Hang on.
Hang on.
Is there a way that we can get a list of all the enterprise reports that are available?
Yes.